and this is part of the jungle.
Okay.
So there's predominantly 2 encampments. This is one of them. The second one, which I don't know if Richard plans on going to, was relocated. So it used to be in this area, and then they all moved within a span of like 3 months into a new area.
For any reason?
Yeah, Walmart was like, you need to get the fuck out. They were gonna like build something back there, and they ended up not doing it.
So they came and they cleaned all that up after the fire, and then they decided to build a road. That's why this is so flat. This used to be like that. That's why this is so flat. So they started building a road, and then when they got to about over there, they noticed that every time they came back in the morning, their batteries were missing from their trucks and their cars. And they said, fuck this, we're not doing this. And they stopped building the road. So it comes to an abrupt end over there. And that is just a way to demonstrate how these populations tend to insert themselves into the civic life of the community. Richard and Amber and Erica and Propane and Soup.
We get 130 meals weekly from Gola, which is one of the best restaurants in town. And with those 130 meals, we not only feed people that are returning citizens, but we feed anybody that we could reach that we know is suffering economic hardship, food insecure, or living in a vulnerable space. So we reach, and we try to do it as a broader demographic as we can. So we go to single mothers, we go to the domestic shelter, domestic abuse shelter. We go to Endeavor House, which is a house for formerly incarcerated people. We go behind STAB. We go to the jungle. We go to West Village, and we've been very successful. We are almost at 7,000 meals since April. It was for the most part a one-man operation. Richard and himself, and then Amber Tan joined me, and she's been great. She's been at it for like 4 months now, and she got so inspired that she asked Cornell for a grant, and she got a grant from Cornell, from Engage Cornell, and she's been using that money to provide propane during the winter months to this population. And she has been the sole provider of propane. It costs $12 to fill up a 20-gallon tank. And she takes them every Friday, and she's become quite the hit among this vulnerable population.
Homelessness can mean like a lot of different things. Like sometimes it's like for people who are trying to hide from the cops, and so they're like really just there for like a few nights until like the heat's off of them. For some people, it's also like rent's really fucking expensive, so they're just gonna live out here until they can find another place. Like there's always an end goal, and the end goal is to like get out. There's also a few people who are like there for autonomy, independence from like whatever kind of like personal shit's going on in their lives. A lot of people also don't like homeless shelters too. It's overcrowded. They got beef with a lot of people. They got beef with the staff. And so that doesn't get to be, it's like, that's hence why there's still encampments and stuff.
These right here.
You wanted soups, right? Or no?
They want soup yet. Drop like 3 or 4 over there. Some bread.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, got some bread too, so.
Give them one of those bags of bread.
Soup right here.
It's a good soup.
Lot of
You got
soup.
spoons? You brought spoons?
I got
Thank you.
spoons, yeah.
We'll give you some Band-Aids and alcohol pads.
Bread actually looks halfway decent too.
I'm gonna put it over there.
Thank you. Thanks.
The fresh food is an absolute necessity to your own self-dignity, right? Think about the folks, your mindset if you're digging through trash cans because you're homeless and you're eating. How are you thinking about yourself? What are you losing, right? So we're not just talking about the physical health from the nutrition, we're also talking about the psychological health of the folks and what they're consuming, right? It's you are what you eat. So if you're eating trash, your system is trash. You can't separate yourself from the way that you're living because you're trapped in it by the things that you're consuming. And if we're going to change this system so that folks are actually healing while they're inside of jail, and then we're providing a mechanism by providing healthy food for them to heal while they're outside, that's going to be a huge make a huge difference, I think, in the numbers of folks who go into incarceration, leave incarceration, and never go back.
And she's beautiful, and they're all beautiful. They're all beautiful in their own way. But their histories of trauma, their histories of addictions, the histories of mental health illness, of abuse, paints the picture that we see before our eyes. And that's already described with a certain no good, no goodness.
Our human bodies are inscribed with certain narratives, and how those narratives play on those bodies defines how the person's lived experience in the social, political, and economic life of a community. So, for example, a Black person is perceived as more violent, less educated. And so it happens across the spectrum. So it happens across with women too, right? Mm-hmm. How we see women and we pay them less. Or how we see a homeless person and we want to reach in our pockets and give them a sandwich, right? Assuming that a sandwich is what's needed to save this person's life. And in a broader sense, what we're talking about here is how the discursive powers, the social institutions, the churches, the politics, even Ithaca's idea of a progressive, forward-thinking community allows these places to exist, or this racism to exist with Black bodies, or the jungle to exist for Caucasians. You know what I mean?
The encampments is so... I remember when I first came out, because I was surprised that there was a lot of... There were... I mean, kind of... Yeah. There's a lot of white people. And a lot of it is intergenerational. Like, you have people who are there and they have kids there. And same cycle of, like, homelessness. Which I think is... I'm like, dang. Like, that... Like, it just means, like, they've been there for a long time. And it's just, like, something that Ithaca City, like... A, refuses to address and acknowledge, or B, like, actively, like, they actively, like, do shitty things there all the time, like, raids and take a bunch of shit.
Black people don't go to the encampments. The homeless people that are Black, I think because of cultural reasons, do not go to the jungle. They don't do jungle sleeping. They go to the shelter, or they'll sleep in their family's couch or on a porch somewhere, but they won't be. So the demographics of Ithaca could be discerned by these spaces. Why does the buses stop running up to West Village at 6 o'clock at night and to Cayuga Heights at 2 o'clock in the morning? You see how you exclude a population from the civic and political life by just not affording them transportation. So we have 6% of the population in Tompkins County is Black. Right? They make up, if you was to go to the mobile patrol app and look at the population of the Tompkins County jail, you're gonna see there's always like 35, 40 people there, and 18 to 20 of them is Black. So they make up 50% of the population of the local jail, despite being 6% of the population of Tompkins County. Then if you go to the shelter, they make over 55% of the population of the shelter. Then you go to the battered women's shelter, and it's almost 80% Black. Then if you go, and this is anecdotal, this part here, and we did a small survey sampling like 270 landlords to see how many of them were filing for eviction notice on their tenants. And it was something like 70% of them are doing that. That's when the moratorium is lifted. Out of 270. And I'm willing to bet that it's going to be disproportionately people from West Village and Chestnut and Southside, which is majority of Black people and the minority people. And so it goes across the line. So how the environment the ecology and the pandemic, intersectionalities, play in determining who's impacted and why. The data just clearly shows that there's a problem.
The college and university scene, we have a concentration of colleges and universities, and it has resulted in, extreme gentrification, on a large scale. It is so much more lucrative for landlords to, turn single homes into, multi-residential units and charge rent, for college students and their families that can afford those prices. There's such a long Section 8 waiting list because of the lack of housing, affordable housing, in the community. And there was, it was known that there were many, single mothers with children who were opting to exchange sexual favors themselves with landlords in order to keep their children safe, because the temporary housing that was offered and available in Tompkins County was known to be unsafe. Came as such a shock and a surprise to many people living in Ithaca, who know Ithaca as a safe and progressive home, but not for everyone.
Those segregated populations on the outskirts were very different. If you were here 20 years ago, maybe 20, 30 years ago, you had more of a diversity of folks living in the downtown area, whereas now in the downtown area it's more students, more college folks. Then the folks who were living downtown got displaced into these other areas. And then not to mention the economic situation where there were, I guess there was a gun factory that was employing a substantial number of African Americans who could then support themselves living in a downtown area. Whereas now, there's nothing really. I guess I'm just speaking to the displacement and the movement of folks, which kind of leads to a lot of folks being in need. I guess you could call that environmental racism, of pushing, having people getting pushed out. But yeah, that I think that requires a deep dissection there.
I set out with that question. This is my question of mine. How could a place like the jungle, that you hear the word jungle, no conception of what it is, exist in a place like Ithaca that has this self-interest, aggressive, forward-thinking, liberal community? And this was the paradox. So this paradox led me to different intersectionalities. And I'm concluding my ethnography now, and it turns out that Ithaca doesn't sustain the jungle as much as the jungle sustains Ithaca. The jungle has been around for 40 years now. And it's part of Ithaca's history. And the institutions and the jobs and the organizations and the progressiveness that Ithaca imagines itself to be is in large part due to the existence of the jungle. If the jungle was to cease to exist tomorrow, there will be thousands of jobs lost in Ithaca. Dozens of organizations will have to close their doors. Now, it is the jungle that sustains Ithaca. The jungle must exist in order for Ithaca to be what it is.
This what is it, multiplicity, right, of a reality here, that says that we're one thing, but then when you dig under the surface, you see another reality if you're looking through the lens of specific groups of people.
It's certainly not the solution, but to a seed of hope. And Healthy Food for All at that conference said, we can't we're not in a position, we don't have resources, we're not the right stakeholder to tackle the housing problem directly, but it's all interconnected. If someone can't afford a safe place to live, then they're likely also struggling to afford healthy food. And so we made a commitment, a pledge that day to turn no single mother with a young child away, and that we would guarantee a CSA share for any single parent with a young child who wanted one. And I later learned that made Ithaca the first city in the United States to guarantee a single parent with a young child living in poverty with access to fresh produce.
I love Ithaca for the fact that it sees itself as a very progressive community, because it identifies itself as such, so I can push the limits on that progressive identity, that highest ideal. Without it, you wouldn't have the work that we have in this community around reentry, around these food systems. Even when you look at the Reimagining Policing initiative that's happening in this community, we're touted as one of the best in the country in terms of how we want to reformulate things, but we are still very, very far behind from where humanity, a civilization should be.
Like, that's one of the biggest things of like why I continue to work for Richard, and like why I wanted to work with Richard, is because it's by the community for the community.
All right, good. And if you need anything, you know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Flash the Batman sign on the sky. And I show up, lady. Oh, you don't know about that?
No.
All right, I don't know about that either.
Oh my God.
All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow.